El Nino, or Christ child, is a weather pattern given its name because throughout the past few decades it has occurred around Christmas. The El Nino comes from the southern East Hemisphere, but often has effects on the West. I spoke with Jay Scotland, meteorologist for CBC, to find out more on the unpredictable weather pattern that is the El Nino and what Toronto can expect this winter.
Sea surface temperature anomalies right now, that's the measure of an El Nino, are well above the threshold. So this does not only look to be a typical El Nino, but could be a very strong El Nino. So yeah, it is possible that this could be as strong or even rival that very, very, very strong El Nino we saw back in No, the El Nino pattern is its own global oscillation. That being said, global warming and climate change and a general warming of the planet as a whole may have effects that contribute to some of the poor effects, I guess, that are caused by an El Nino. So really we're in uncharted territories in terms of warmer than normal temperatures across the planet, plus warmer than normal sea surface temperatures over the eastern Pacific basin. So the two could work hand in hand, and that could be very bad for parts of the globe. Well, large-scale effects, essentially an El Nino pattern. Normally we see the warmest water in the Pacific over the western side of the basin, so off the coast of Australia, for example. And the cooler temperatures are generally over the eastern side of the basin. What happens with an El Nino pattern is we actually see a weakening of the trade winds, and that, or even a reversal of them, and that allows all of that warm water to move from the west across the central Pacific and then park itself over the eastern Pacific basin off the coast of South America. That's generally where we see cooler temperatures in the ocean, and that can have an influence by increasing the height of the atmosphere there, also has an influence on upper level winds, can influence our jet stream, for example, and that really has a profound effect on climate and on weather across a large portion of the globe, certainly in South America and here in North America. Well, for the Toronto area, for southern Ontario, generally an El Nino and a strong El Nino usually results in warmer than normal conditions and arguably drier than normal conditions. So after two very, very, very cold winters where we saw record-breaking cold both last winter and the year before, an El Nino would generally favor an El Nino pattern, temperatures to be a little bit warmer than normal. So sounds nice, I know, to know that we're not going to potentially have a deep freeze this winter. That being said, no two El Nino events are the same. El Nino does not have a twin, so it's very hard to gauge the actual effects from one El Nino event to the next. So warmer and drier than normal, certainly a possibility with El Nino as we look through the winter months, but there are a number of other regional and local effects that could offset that. So it's more of a waiting game, but at the moment, looking to see, or hopefully see, temperatures a bit warmer than what we saw last year. Well, so far, for the month of November, for example, Toronto has seen most of the days above seasonal average. Now, is that related directly to an El Nino? Not necessarily. We have to keep in mind we've also been dealing with a large blob, and it is actually called a blob of very warm water, not off the coast of South America, but off the coast of North America that has had a huge impact, certainly in weather over Western Canada, and has had an impact downstream as well here in Southern Ontario. So has El Nino already been playing an effect in our weather? That's debatable, but in the months ahead, then yes, it is likely to have an effect in some way on our weather, and looking at past El Nino events generally will favor warmer than normal temperatures during the colder winter months. We talk about warmer than normal and drier than normal conditions in southern Ontario. It does not necessarily mean every day is going to be warmer than normal. It just means on the whole, an El Nino pattern favors warmer than normal season. And in terms of drier conditions, yes, that can mean less snow, but when temperatures are warmer than normal, that means they're more often around the freezing mark, and that does increase the risk for freezing precipitation, freezing rain. So that is an increased risk of icing events. So it's not all good news for Toronto and southern Ontario. We talk about warmer than normal and drier than normal conditions in southern Ontario. It does not necessarily mean every day is going to be warmer than normal. It just means on the whole, an El Nino pattern favors warmer than normal season. And in terms of drier conditions, yes, that can mean less snow, but when temperatures are warmer than normal, that means they're more often around the freezing mark, and that does increase the risk for freezing precipitation, freezing rain. So that is an increased risk of icing events. So it's not all good news for Toronto and southern Ontario.
So what does that mean for Toronto commuters? During an interview with Brad Ross from the TTC, I learned how the TTC prepares for weather effects that could cause delays. Ross mentioned a device nicknamed the Shoe, which clears ice from the streetcar power lines that could prevent the streetcar from running, as well as storm trucks that clear the streetcar rails. Ross also noted that the subway system can be affected by ice and snow, so a milder winter could mean less delays, but that doesn't mean the TTC does not prepare in case of a harsh winter. And although Toronto has seen some snow, it hasn't been enough to last. Haeley DiRisio, John Northcott's class, Humber College.